Good morning, everybody. I'm going to do a quick tech check because I'm a party of one here. Make sure it's working. Let's see. All right, you can hear it. Cool. Well, great. It is early. I don't know why I chose to do it this early. Maybe I thought you would watch this or listen to this on your commute. I usually do them in like the middle of the day. I have no idea what the average musician's daily schedule is like because it's such a different journey for everybody. Sometimes it's full-time day job, music in the evenings. Sometimes it's nanny work. Sometimes it's working in restaurants. So sometimes it's full-time music, which means you're probably sleeping through this because you've been out playing a club show or something. So this replay will live on with no problems. So I'm just going to start by sharing this link out to my event so people can find it. Want them to be able to do that. While I'm doing that, I'll tell you a little bit about myself if you don't know me. My name is Nikki. I'm the founder of KITTENTEETH, and I help musicians and artists of all types turn their passions into small businesses. So I teach marketing and business coaching, and I also help with mindset coaching. So learning to have a more entrepreneurial mindset is definitely crucial if you want to be successful as a DIY person in your life. So I kind of got to this journey because I used to be a freelancer and I used to offer everything I teach my clients now as services. And one, it wasn't super sustainable for most musicians to continue to pay somebody to do all of these things for them. You know, it can get expensive, the amount of hours that goes into it, and with my expertise. So I wanted to find a way that was more affordable. So teaching people how to fish is kind of what I'm into. And I love being able to empower people. So that's my journey to going from offering services to coaching. Types of projects that I've worked on, I do a lot of crowdfunding, so helping people strategize how they want to do their crowdfund and then making all the materials and putting those together. And then the day of and like weeks of work, coaching and staying connected during that. I help people launch records. So if you are launching your first record, or maybe you really want to put some force behind your next one, I help with coaching people on how to do that. So learning how to be a DIY artist. And I also help with people who, and I found this is really interesting, but if you're a solo artist, it can be really lonely trying to handle all the business and music and everything all together by yourself. So I work with a lot of solo artists who don't have bands to rely on to help them because it can be really lonely to run a business. All right, so just letting people know here on my event. Thanks for hanging out with me while I do this. Like I said, I do the solo, so I have to be my own tech person and host. All right, well, welcome. So let's dive right in. So Instagram for musicians. So this topic, I actually asked everybody on my Facebook page what I should talk about next. And I got a lot of people asking about Instagram. And I use Instagram personally. I use it to grow this business. I use it for a lot of my corporate clients. I use it at Maston Labs, my day job. And I read a lot of best practices and people talk about, oh, you have to do this, you have to do that. But I feel like for musicians, it's a little different. Best practices are, of course, important, but I don't know if they always apply exactly the same way. And I'm very data driven. So I asked a client of mine if I can run his Instagram for 30 days and see what happens. And I ran it just like I would run a business. And so I tried to test some of those best practices, and I tried to see what I could, what I saw other artists doing. I was trying it on his page and just seeing what was working and what wasn't working. So this is all based on my experience from an experiment for 30 days of running a band's Instagram. So at the high level, a lot of it was the same as far as what works. As things like having high quality images, having, being engaged, kind of all the like buzz words that you hear about Instagram, like, yes, all of that applies. So we don't even need to dive into that. I'll just dive right into what happened for me. So my major takeaway about Instagram that I found was that if you don't have some other type of enriching content outside of I have music, it's going to be really hard to get new followers. And so I found that most of the artists that are doing really well on Instagram that are not signed to a label, they're not already gigantic, they're still kind of on that indie level, like playing club shows. They had a lifestyle brand that they were building around themselves. So I saw examples such as like advocacy. There's quite a few like LGBTQIA artists who are not only musicians, but they are also advocates for marginalized communities. I've seen, there's an example of a gal in my Women in Music group, and she does a whole lifestyle brand about motherhood. And so that's her whole thing. So she not only talks about music, but she talks about it through the lens of motherhood. So there's a lifestyle aspect to it. So if you're not comfortable sharing that kind of stuff, I can see how you would just run into that brick wall of like, why doesn't Instagram work for me to grow? I can talk to my current fans, but it's not growing anything. And it's hard because people still want it to be a relationship. So if you're only getting on there and asking, of course people aren't going to be attracted to that when they land on your page, because they're just like, oh, it's just somebody talking about shows all the time. So they're not going to follow you if you happen to come across them through a hashtag or something. So there has to be a lifestyle aspect to what you're doing on Instagram if you want to use it to grow. Just think about the people you follow, like the only bands that really can get away with being like, I have a show, are ones that are already famous. They're already killing it. Like they're already like they don't have to build with it. So if you want to build with it, you have to focus on making a lifestyle brand around you. And Everkip from the PR agency Tiny Human gave me this advice when I asked him, well, how does a band do that? And he said, go to the store and buy the Game of Life. And on there, you'll have a spinner that has 12 little sections. And number them 1 through 12. Get a notepad, 1 through 12. And write down 12 things that are interesting about you that don't have to do with music. So maybe you are a bartender. You could put cocktails. Maybe you ride horses. You could put horses. Just go all the way through. And then when you're sitting down to do your scheduling for Instagram, spin the spinner, see what it lands on, and make a post about that topic. And only 1 out of every 12 posts can be about music. Granted, if you're launching something, that's different, but on your day-to-day life, like posting for Instagram. And I love that idea. That is a really easy way to kind of get out of your own head about, oh my God, I don't want to be a lifestyle brand. I know that was my first thought when he said that, like, what? Like, I don't want to show people like what I'm eating. Like, what is that? Is that a lifestyle brand? So try the spinner, see if that works. I know I'm trying to be a little bit more like that. Try to be a little bit more open. I still get freaked out if somebody recognizes me from Facebook. So I can't say that I'm leading by example in this area, but I'm more of a face-to-face person. So I struggle with that for my own personal brand. But yeah, so if you want Instagram for growing, think lifestyle brand. And it doesn't have to be super personal. It can be things like cocktails and riding horses and yeah. So the next high level thing I learned about Instagram is that it was a really cool way, and this is the most obvious one, to interact with your current fans. So the account that I was working on never really post unless they had a show. And so people were really motivated. So in the last 30 days, we picked up about 40 followers. And I would not say that any of those 40 followers were unfamiliar with their music. They were the people that should have been following him all along. And that's because it just wasn't engaging before, so they weren't really interested. And then after shows, he wasn't, nothing during the show was like, hey, like, find me on social media. He didn't tell people that in person. It didn't happen. He didn't like tag the venues. So like if you did like it, you couldn't find him. He didn't make it easy. So we actually just picked up a lot of fans that were already his. So that was such a good opportunity because now he can engage with them. So in marketing, we talk a lot about touch points. So it takes an average of 7 touch points to make a sale, just on average in any industry. So getting somebody to follow you on Instagram that's already a current fan of yours increases the touch points. So the more often you can interact with them when you do go to launch your record, you're going to have a better chance than trying to launch it to a cold audience, because it's people who are like invested in who you are. So it's important. It's not just for growing. It's also for being on the other side of that relationship. I always talk about social media as a relationship. You have to give as much as you ask. Just like in a relationship, nobody wants to be friends with somebody who just asks for stuff all the time. Could you imagine, just like, think about the people on the street who like come up to you with their mixtape. If you're in a good mood, you might pick it up just to be kind. But most of the time you're like, why would I take this? I don't know you. Like, I don't want to buy this from you. That's essentially what you're doing when you're just like buy on Instagram to a bunch of strangers. So it's okay that Instagram is good for picking up your current fans. I think that it's probably what it's best for. So I'm just going through my notes here, make sure I don't miss anything here. All right, cool. Cool. Great. So things that I did to help try to pick up those current fans of his was I posted about the show, of course. And when I posted about the show, I made sure not to just put a show poster, because that's not, they're really pretty. And I think that they're great on the street, but they're not super great for connecting with somebody online. People like eye contact in their photos. They like to see your face. They like to see the band. So we switched the way we did it. We started doing like a picture of him and then a picture of the other artist, and then ending in the carousel with the poster with the information. And then of course we tagged the venues, we tagged the other artist. We used any hashtags that were applicable to the band, but also applicable to the other bands. So for example, the next show that he has is with 2 female fronted bands. So he used the women in music hashtags. He used the hashtags that he saw them using. So we made a hashtag mix that was good for all the artists. And then, yeah, he made sure to tag everybody so that it can have some thread. So if somebody does come to the show and then they're like, oh, I really liked that opening artist, they can go find him really easily. The other thing we did was after shows. So he did a Bob Dylan tribute after the show. We posted about the show, again, tagged everybody that is applicable. And then we asked about like, what's your favorite Bob Dylan tune? And that was actually interesting because people have a lot of opinions about Bob Dylan. You know, you can hit or miss on that 80s, 90s Bob Dylan. I mean, but it got people engaged because they were excited after the show and then they wanted to talk about it. So we actually gave them a space to talk about it. And that was our highest performing post actually during the 30-day experiment. So another thing I learned is that venues, booking agents, and press care about Instagram. So even if you're not using it to grow and get new fans, people do their due diligence. So booking agents, there are some that'll just book anybody, of course. They'll just burn all of their relationships until they like go out of business. But most booking agents want somebody who's good because they have to have that relationship with the venues to continue to book there. So if you're not doing everything you can, if your music's not good, if you're not, doing the promo work, the booking agent doesn't want to work with you because then you're not going to have a good show where they're booking you. So they're chipping away at their own relationship by giving you that show. So if a booking agent isn't doing their due diligence on you, I would go the other way. I would run scared because you should do it on them and they should do it for you. Same with venues, especially venues you've never played before. They're going to see, how do you promote your other shows? Because venues are in the business, most of them, in the business of selling alcohol. They're a bar. Music is how they drive traffic in to buy that alcohol. Some venues are about the music for sure, but most club shows are going to be about driving traffic in so that they can get money at the bar. That's why a lot of venues don't take huge cuts at the door because that's not where they make their money. And you have more negotiating power if you can drive more people in because they're like, sure, we'll sell the bar more, so we'll give you more at the door. We can do that. So they're going to look and see how you're promoting. And same with the press. The press wants to write an interesting story, but they also don't want to link back to somebody who's like a dud on social media because they also have to think about their readers. Everything's a relationship. You and the press have a relationship. The press and their followers have a relationship. So you need to show up not just for the press person, but for the press person's following. So having a really curated and put together Instagram is a great way to do that. You want people to see a level of professionalism and polish, and that suits your music. So you want to make sure that your Instagram is active. If you're going to be doing Instagram, it's fine if it's blank, but if you're like doing random one-off posts and they're kind of like, like a mixed bag on quality and all that, like that's worse than not having anything. So you want to use Instagram to basically prove that it's like an online portfolio, a visual portfolio. So in that, make sure that you're posting, of course, lots of pictures of your band, lots of pictures of your face. People hate it, but they want to see you. It's very few artists can get away with not showing their face. I know there's some very famous ones, but it's really hard to not like make who you are as a human being part of your persona as an artist. So you need to have lots of pictures of that. High quality pictures. iPhones are crazy good now. All you need is some decent light. You can reach out to the event photographers at your shows and see if you can buy a batch of photos from them. I think they're artists as well, so don't assume they're going to give them to you for free, but most event photographers do it because they love it and it's like their way to contribute to the music community. So they may give them to you for free, but don't expect that. But do reach out to them and say, hey, can I get the full, batch of photos that you took? I'd like to use them in this way, and see if they'll partner with you on that. And share videos. So Instagram now has Instagram TV, which again, it's not really like a lot of people don't watch Instagram TV yet, but you can go now to this band's profile and you don't have to leave the profile to see a performance of them live, to see a solo version of the songs, and to see full band versions of the songs. So you can see that all right there in the app. You don't have to leave. So if I'm a venue doing my due diligence, I don't have to like go to a million places. I can actually, if I land on your Instagram first, I can get everything I need right there. So make sure it's beautifully curated. There's so many cool apps out there that will help you preview what it's going to look like beforehand. I use one called Later, so you can actually see what your feed's going to look like when you're planning. So you can, move things around so you can have like good patterns and, vibe and make sure it's, looking good. And then, make sure you're putting your music on there. Don't be afraid to just put some iPhone videos in your feed or on your story, or even Instagram TV. Need more coffee, it's early. Another best practice that was very obvious is engagement. So Instagram will never tell you what is important in the algorithm. They want to keep you guessing. They don't want people to try to game the system. But this one makes sense to me, and I'm going to just say it, and I hope that it's the truth. Engagement is the most important part of Instagram. You have to get engagement. And I think about it because this is why I think that. They don't want people to leave the platform. So if you're doing something interesting, they're going to show your post to other people because they're like, oh, this is something cool that's happening. Let's show it to these people because then they won't leave Instagram. They'll just come over here and watch this thing that's happening. And I saw that very heavily in this experiment. So before this, the band had never used any hashtags. And I can see why. And I usually tell people don't hashtag if you're not going to be engaging on them because, again, it's like a relationship. If you're putting trash into this hashtag, like people aren't going to want to pick up on it. If you're not participating, if you're not like talking to other people who are on that hashtag that are supposed to build communities, like you're just asking strangers. And that sucks. So we went and followed a bunch of hashtags, and not just like Seattle music or like DIY musician, like not just like music stuff, because that's like community musician to musician. We did stuff like hashtag country living, hashtag farm life, like because this is a kind of a country band. So we like went into like hashtags that are the hashtags that people who like country music are on that are not music related, and just started engaging. Like there were so many great people who had like pictures of like baby goats and chickens, and like being able to like interact with those people in a really engaged way was fun. Actually, the band I was working with, we were talking, he's like, I really, at first I didn't like that I was like following all these people on Instagram now, and I felt like, oh, who are these strangers? He's like, but my feed is like fun and like has a ton of variety now. And like, he's like, I've been having these weird conversations with people, and he's actually really enjoying it. So it ended up being a positive for him and for me. So we're participating on the hashtags and we're using the hashtags. And so when people, even if it's people who don't end up following, like and engaged in your post, like the Bob Dylan one, there was a lot of people that weren't at the show but like followed the Bob Dylan hashtag or were on it and leaving comments. It made it so that it showed to our followers more, because Instagram said there's something interesting happening on this Bob Dylan post. Now I want to show it to more people. So we got bigger engagement. And I tested that by running some of the posts without hashtags, and they just like, they were total flops. Like we were getting over 100 engagements on a post, and then I would do it without any hashtags and I'd get like 10. And so it was very clear that the hashtags were driving the engagement, because even the strangers interacting made it so that it was popular to Instagram and they wanted to show it. So, okay, cool. So I think I've gotten through all my notes here. Let's see. Oh, this is the one that everyone hates. The thing that you need to do is plan your Instagram in advance. I know it's hard. I know it feels weird to sit down and like plan 30 days of Instagram, but it's going to help you so much. So there's an app I use. It's called Later. I have the paid version because I have multiple accounts on it, but they do have a free version. And the benefits of doing that is that you can see what the whole strategy looks like together. You can see if you're like, oh, I'm just doing a lot of show posts, I should probably mix in something else. You can see what it all looks like. So you can see if your feed looks nice and curated. You can see if you need to add videos. It also has data, so you can see what posts are doing really well and try to do more posts like that. It's also got tools like helping you make suggestions for hashtags. So you put one hashtag in and it suggests things that you might also use. So you can do some experimentation. It lets you save those hashtags into a caption. So you can just like add it quickly with one button. You don't have to like write them out every time or keep like a document. But most of all, it reminds you to post them. So if you have a business profile, it'll automatically post it. So you don't even have to do it. But if you don't have a business profile, it will just remind you. So it'll just send you a little push notification on your phone saying, hey, it's time to post. And that to me is the most valuable part of this app. It tells you when. And it will also learn as to when's the best time to post. So a lot of people worry about that. Like, should I post in the morning or at night? For this band, we actually found the morning during the week is the best time, but that may not be the same for you. So this app will actually track the data of your followers, and it will also track how they engage with you. And over time, it will make recommendations about when you should put your posts up. So plan in advance. The other reason is when you plan in advance, you're prepared and you're not going to say something weird that like makes your fans feeling alienated because you just like had a rampage Instagram post, which happens. You don't want to alienate people. Like if you have something to say, like do it with intention and be thoughtful about it. And when you plan in advance, you can do that. And another thing, and I kind of briefly mentioned it, was utilize a business profile. A lot of people, there's like this myth that like if you have a business profile, you get less engagement and all these things. I have not been able to find any sense of proof in that. We've only seen the benefits, which are mostly around data. Being able to see what posts are working has been crucial for us because I didn't have any data before, and I was like kind of looking at his old posts like, I don't know, I guess that kind of looked like that worked. The one thing I saw was that putting himself at the center was the most engaging thing when it was pictures of him. So that's basically what we did, was pictures of him and pictures of the band. And that's what people loved above all else, was pictures of them and the videos of them singing. So yeah, utilize a business profile. If you do want to do some boosted posts, you can to get to reach your current followers. That's also a benefit, but mostly it's like the data, like you're not going to lose anything. The other thing is on business profiles, they've deprioritized like how on the profile, like how many followers you have. It's not so like prominent as it used to be. So that's also a really nice feature, is that the profile looks different and you can get verified, and there's nice little perks. So I think you should do a business profile. So let's get into what didn't work, the negatives. So when you go to someone's Instagram story and then it's like their post and it says, new post, and like you're just to click on it and go to their feed. I think out of the entire time we did it like 5 or 6 times, and we had one person, one person out of like almost 700 followers, like click on it. That doesn't work. People are not on the story for that. So do with that as you will. We stopped doing it because I'm like, that's not really helping. The other thing that didn't work was link in bio. So unless you're like running a crowdfunding campaign, we have a link tree. So if you go to his bio, it actually has like, you know, his latest video and like where to listen to his music and stuff like that. But we had the entire time like 10 people click a link in his bio total. Like it just wasn't even worth saying. So find interesting ways to embed whatever you're trying to get them to link and click on into the post when you can. I understand if you're trying to drive engagement during a crowdfund, that's one thing. But like if you're just like, oh, I have a show, like link in bio for like, you know, tickets or whatever, just like see if you can make a short link, like a bit.ly, like Bitly's free, so it's just like bit.ly and then slash and then like date of the show or like some short thing that people can remember. Because it's, yeah, you just like, it's just people don't click on it. Yeah. Which is kind of hard. So I wish Instagram would just at least let you put one link in the post. That would be so helpful to people who are trying to like sell tickets, or do like a, you know, a ticket link somehow. I don't know. Or you could, another option is you could boost it. So if you boost it, you can do a link because it'll say learn more at the bottom of the post. So it might be worth doing like $1 a day or something to boost it so people can click directly. Because yeah, we just couldn't get any traction on the link in bio. Oh, Cheryl asked, can you post a link to the later app? So yes, so the later